Hi everybody, I'm Dexter and I'm here with the In Session team to do a trend review for our new spring issue. So let's get right into it with some of our favorite trends and the looks from this past season. Steven, do you want to kick us off?
All right, thank you, Dexter, for introducing me. So I'm going to be talking about the return of power dressing, which we can kind of call neo power suiting, and we've seen it making a strong return, but it feels a bit different from the really minimal tailoring that we've seen in the past, especially coming out of COVID. We've seen this quiet luxury boom. Um, Now we're kind of feeling a bit of backlash against that. So fall winter 2026 suiting is becoming more and more expressive and going away from that quietness that we've seen historically. We're seeing unique shoulder silhouettes that are sharp and powerful, which is kind of giving a little bit of a flashback to what we saw in the late 80s with power suiting. A lot of structured jackets are being tailored with these pants that are more fluid and drapey, and the fabrics are very light and airy, and they give a lot of motion that move naturally with the body. Some brands that I like to reference are Saint Laurent, Ferragamo, and of course Stella McCartney. And we've noticed this direction is being defined through these broad shoulders, uniquely cinched waists, and floor length outerwear that feels very cinematic and not as corporate as we saw historically. And the good thing about this trend is that it's very wearable and democratized. You don't really need to go extremely formal to tap into it. You don't need to have these really strongly structured power suits like we see on the runway, but it could be something as simple as adding a structured blazer along with a t-shirt.
Mhm. I've definitely been seeing a lot more structured suiting out recently, but for me, I don't think this is something that I'm fully going to be able to get into because I am a little more basic when it comes to suiting. I usually just wear one if it's a formal or a business occasion, and I'm a big believer in like knowing your audience when you're dressing for something. And if I'm wearing a suit, it's usually because I have to. And if I wear something that's been trending recently like this, I'm definitely gonna get clowned.
Yeah, like I don't know, like usually with suits, like I also think about like wearing it for like special occasions, like a business thing or like a wedding thing. But I don't know, I feel like power structuring and like the suits is like it's really cool when it plays around with like, different like proportions as well in the suits as well. So I don't know, I feel like it's been really good for like, a lot of like experimental like fashion designs as well. So I don't know, I just think of the idea alone was like pretty cool. But yeah, me personally, like I'll only like wear it if I'm like having to wear like a costume or like yeah, I can just think of it like a Halloween costume or something like that for a lot of the suits. And if I'm want to go for like a special occasion, I want to look like, fancy. So yeah.
It definitely seems a bit retro.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, like with power suiting, not saying because like I'm a girl, but also like like proportion wise, I feel like it wouldn't work for me. But I feel like once in a while it would be cool to wear. But especially like since the weather is getting hot, I think it's like not the best idea. But every once in a while, even maybe in like a business setting would be cool.
It's a great trend, and there's so many amazing looks that have been coming out this past season, but actually finding a situation outside of a runway or an event where fashion is the primary objective of it, it's difficult to find a situation where it really fits. Like, there's a lot of amazing opportunities with this trend, but shifting your own wardrobe and really finding that perfect situation is really difficult.
Yeah, well, I think on that note, this trend is a lot about, I guess, destigmatizing something like a blazer in a way. They mentioned that in order to accessibilize it, you kind of have to see it worn with other things, whether it even be sweatpants or a t-shirt. And I think that's the good part about high fashion is this trickle down effect. When you start to see it integrated in less formal forms of fashion and dressing.
Mhm. 100%. There's going to be a lot of influences from this into high fashion, but I am excited to see suiting change a lot. Like it's been a little bit stagnant recently, especially in mainstream consumer culture. There's pretty basic suit combinations that everybody ends up wearing. I know down here in Southern Georgia, we can't really blink without seeing someone wearing a navy blazer and some khakis for frat hazing. Like it's very consistent for what it is, and any disruption is really welcomed.
Yeah, like I've been seeing that a lot, honestly. Like times where I'd be out and then they're having like a, frat thing and like a homecoming and then to be out in the bars, wearing their suits and I'm like, dang, okay. Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. For me though, like on top of that, like for me and like for my trend as well, I take like Bambi print, meaning like animal print as well. And I feel like, animal print has been like, in a come up over the years, like, because back then, like the typical ones were like, cheetah print, leopard print, like you see it a lot in like runways and like fashion attires too. Like, especially with like, it's been around like the runways for like, especially Brunch in the runway. And then like, Brandon Maxwell for the fall, winter 2026 as well. But I don't know. I feel like Anno Prince has been like made like a very, very huge comeback in this like recent years, as well as like the decade too, really. So I don't know. I find that to be really cool with like Animal Prince.
Yeah, cheetah print has always been a big thing in some form of another. Like everybody always says that cheetah's dead, but there's always going to be someone wearing it. But the deer, like Bambi print, is definitely a lot more unique. The
Mhm.
deer aesthetic is something that's been trending on Pinterest and
Mhm.
TikTok is just a vibe and a major aesthetic, even outside of clothing. But it's always interesting seeing a new animal print come to trend, and I'm curious how big it's going to grow. Because I feel like, especially with how Bambi can be modified, like essentially it's just white spots on brown fabric if you want to break it down into its bare bones. So there's a lot that can be done in transforming it and making it a little less pure animal print and slightly more abstracted for a little bit calmer alternative to cheetah or leopard.
Yeah, because I
Yeah, and
also
also the cool thing about this trend is that it definitely takes a retrospective look into the past. Like when
Mhm.
you think animal print, the first designer you should think of is Roberto Cavalli,
Mhm.
and how Y2K kind of took that and it exploded. So it's cool to see the cyclical nature of fashion being shown through something like a print, which is very, very definitively Y2K.
Mhm. And I also feel like with like in terms of like animal prints, it's also like enhances like the personality too, because like the animal prints is very like out there and it's very like unique too, especially like Bambi, like it's very unique because you think, oh yeah, it's typical like animal print and stuff like that, or it's just a typical bamboo like a Bambi print, but it's like very like appealing too. So I think it's like really really cool and it's very much well into fashion as well and fits fashion too.
100%. On the little more boring side in Runway, I've been seeing corduroy a lot more. I love corduroy as a fabric, and it's interesting seeing it having its moment. Like recently, there was a leaked sample from a Paul Smith and Barber collection with a classic barber coat just in full corduroy instead of the wax cotton. And it's very interesting. I feel like it's traditionally been a bit of an older leaning fabric. Like I have always felt like it kind of dated me a little bit when I wore a little bit of corduroy, but there's been a lot of experimenting. Like Loewe had a very like large corduroy pattern, or it was almost felted, and there was like a centimeter or two of lift on the pattern, just making it extremely plush, honestly. So I feel like if brands start to experiment with it, we can actually have some growth with it. Like there's always a need for new materials and especially revitalizing old ones. So I'm curious if you guys are corduroy adjacent or have anything in your closets with it or are looking to get anything with it.
Well, yeah, honestly, like I definitely have a few pair of like, corduroy article of clothing too. Like I have like a corduroy jacket that I bought and then also like some corduroy pants. And I also even remember like for like one of my classes, like my fashion design classes, I had to like create like a whole like corduroy jacket for it. So it's like some very cool and like, interesting material too. So yeah.
Mhm.
Especially for me, like I guess like back then, I used to have corduroy. Like I would wear this like green corduroy jacket, like almost like every time I go out. But I feel like now, because as we get older and as our senses kind of like heightened, I just got like overstimulated, especially since it's like hot.
Mhm.
100%. It is not easy to wear during the summer, so I'm hoping that by the time the new autumn winter collections roll around, it's a lot better weather and it permits to be engaging in that trend.
It's cool that you mentioned about what they're doing with corduroy at Loewe. One thing that I've noticed this fashion um the fall winter season is that a lot of the alterations that are going on, at least with fabric, and even details, is that they're simply just blowing up the proportions of everything. And it's cool to see it go from doing something like a collar that's blown up or disproportional necklines or waistlines. Even something like a fabric trim or a weave or a certain textile style. It's cool to see how proportions can be integrated to something like that.
100%. Loewe is always out there with their proportions and finding something new to differentiate themselves. But on that point, that is all the time we have. And thank you for listening to this episode of In Session. Thank you.